Going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders Podcast, aka The Whip Show. I am Deshaun Whipdog Whipple. Yeah, I'm rocking the black and white today. I'm with my partner, devastating Daryl Pace. What's going on, man?
It's going great here. I'm in the control center again this week. We worked out all our technical issues from the past. So ready to go. Exciting lineup we got today.
I'm surprised they kicked you out of the control center yet, man. I mean, you doing all the sounds. You keep acting up in there, man. We got to bring Shivani or somebody back, man.
We got to. Once we get through these little difficulties we've got, we got to get Shivani or somebody in here and help us regulate over here in the control room.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Shivani. Speaking of Shivani, speaking of the NWO, we're going to get a little retro today. And today, if you're watching on the video, his name is the best IT guy ever. But if you're just listening to the audio, we have Michael Hermann, the creator of RetroMania Wrestling. How are you doing today, sir?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, man. Thank you for your time, man. I'm going to tell you, I've been following RetroMania Wrestling, everything you guys have been putting on social media since day one.
I appreciate that.
I see the fans back there behind you. They're excited at NWA 70th anniversary. So, first things first, Michael, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you start?
Yeah, absolutely. So, about back 2000 or probably 10, 11 era, I wanted to remake WrestleFest. I wanted to add Macho Man and the Hart Foundation and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to the game. So I looked into like how you could hack it, because there's a lot of cool hacks out there now that people are doing. Like, there's a ton of stuff for like No Mercy,
okay.
But there was nothing for WrestleFest. So I looked around, and it's just because it was so hard, if not impossible, to do. So my background is software engineering. My primary job is accounting and finance software. So I do have a background in software, but not game design or anything. But I figured, you know what, as a hobby, I'm going to start my own engine. I'm going to build it from scratch and basically reverse engineer WrestleFest so I can add those characters into the game. So that's what I started with. But I'm married. I have 3 kids. So, some hobbies, you'll pick up for a couple, maybe a week or two, and then something comes up and you put it down for 3 weeks, and you basically have to start over because you forget everything you did. So I did that for like maybe a year or two. And then they announced the WrestleFest for the iPad. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to love it. I look forward to it. And then I didn't really like it.
Now, at the time they did that, they said it was the iPad, right? But then they were going to do it for PlayStation and Xbox.
Yep.
iPad, you don't have the controls. They did put Randy Savage in, but you don't have the controls. You're waiting for the Xbox or PlayStation version, and it never happens.
Yeah. And it was, that's the thing with, they don't translate that well to the touch screen. It's okay, and I would have lived with it, but I wanted the same art style as WrestleFest. I don't love this cell shading, at least not in that game. I didn't like it. And I didn't feel like it really held true to the original enough for me. I liked the new features they added, and it was great. They had a bunch of different wrestlers and stuff like that. It just wasn't what I was looking for. So, fast forward to like 2017, and then finally I'm like, you know what, I'm going to get serious about this. So I hired someone who actually had game development experience, and we decided, you know what, I'm going to pay somebody who knows what they're doing to prototype this out and just get 2 guys in the ring. And I think initially we ripped the sprites for Mr. Perfect, and the real early stuff we showed had like Mr. Perfect in the ring from the original WrestleFest. Just so we could test out and see if we could make it look like WrestleFest did as far as the animations go. And it went well, and it was enough to convince me. And then I did some market research, and wrestling games typically sell pretty well because there aren't a lot of them. And especially lately, there haven't been a lot of them at all the last couple of years. Fire Pro World, I think, released in 2016. And then you have the 2K series. And then there's a couple, like you got Chikara and you got Pro Wrestling X and a couple of the other indie ones, which are good too. But again, they're different games than mine. They're Chikara is more of like an over-the-top arcade game, and it goes with 3D models and does some really cool stuff. And then Pro Wrestling X is really trying to tap into that No Mercy vibe. But I really wanted WrestleFest. Like, I wanted just to add stuff that was missing that they couldn't do in 1991 that I can do now pretty easily, like corner Irish whips and, you know, 6-man tags, 8-man tags, cages where you can like climb on top of them, and just a whole bunch of other stuff that they just couldn't do in 1991. So I got hired another programmer. We have right now we have 15 people working on the game. Most of that is all artists because there's so many sprites in the game. So that's kind of the long-winded answer of how it started and where we got to where we are.
Nice. And I'm going to tell you, I was a huge WrestleFest fan from day one. Spent many a quarters running with Hulk Hogan versus the Warrior. And to this day, I never was able to beat the Road Warriors. I'm sorry. I couldn't beat them.
You pump enough quarters in. You know, I could never beat them on 1 quarter, though. I'm not even – I mean, it took me at least – even playing it on MAME, it takes me at least $1, $1.25 to get through the game.
Nice. Well, you know, doing a game like this, I was reading at one point, this was actually going to be considered, like you said, WrestleFest Part 2. Have you had any type of backlash from the WWE for doing this game or the original creators?
No, because, you know, we're not using any WWE IP. And the one of the gentlemen working with me by the name of Mike Archer, he used to work at WWE. So we have a relationship there, and we were very very detailed looking into everybody we've signed to make sure they own their characters outright. Because early on we were about to sign 2 other guys from the original game, and it turned out they didn't own the gimmick, and the WWE did, so we couldn't pursue it. But it's also checking on who has Legends deals, because then we can't get them. You know, for example, one I want to get, and at some point I'm going to add, is Magnum TA. We just announced Nikita Koloff, you know, and I want to add Magnum TA. So at some point he's going to get it, but he's under a Legends deal currently. I think for like a wrestling figure or something. So yeah, so that was definitely something we had to be worried about, and we want to make sure we don't step on their toes at all. And we've actually talked to them about some other things, so we're on definitely good terms with them. As far as the WrestleFest 2, though, we're the official sequel, you know, and it's, you know, I have to admit it is a marketing thing for us because it doesn't get us any of the IP from the original. We signed the Road Warriors on our own. But Arc System Works, you know, who make Guilty Gear, and they own the rights to River City Ransom and the whole Technos arcade library, like Double Dragon, a bunch of other games. A Dodgeball was another one they had. But they own that library, and we were able to come to a licensing agreement with them that not only gives us the right to call ourselves the official sequel, but we also have the license to use Matt Mania IP, which was another wrestling. You guys are about my age, I think, so probably know what I'm talking about. Because some of the younger fans might not know Matt Mania, but I remember playing that in like a hotel. Like back then, every place you went had arcade games, you know. And we didn't travel much as a family, but we would go, we'd drive one place a year for like a long weekend. And I'll never forget, it was Williamsburg, Virginia. And I didn't really want to go there. It was all historical stuff. You know, I was like 10 or 11 years old, but our hotel had Matt Mania. It was the best vacation I ever had.
No, you know, these games were so cool because, you know, back in the day, you know, people playing these games, there's limited sprites, right? You can only have so many characters. And so this is one of those first games like this and like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where you can have 4 people playing at the same time. And then and with the Royal Rumble that they had in the original game, you could have like, 6 people or so in the ring. And that was great. Even in our modern games, it wasn't until the last few years we get 8 people in the ring. It took decades just to get that. So,
yeah, we're gonna have 8 in this one. Nice. So it's a little crowded because we kept the same dimensions roughly the WrestleFest had. So we're not as close up on the action just because one of the issues with the original one is if you played 2 players or on a 4-player cabinet, if you were all the way to the left side of the ring and your buddy was all the way to the right side, somebody got cut off. So, you know, in order to do a good 8-player co-op, we just zoomed out a little bit. We still have really big sprites, and the size is relative to the ring the same way the original was. but we just backed it up a little bit to make everybody fit in the action. And you can determine how many people you want in the ring at once. That's like a user setting. So if you think 8 might be a little too hectic, you can put it on 6 or even 4 if you wanted to.
Oh, sweet. Now, when you're reverse engineering this and you're going through the code, was there anything that you found oh man, they coded out some superstar, some wrestler at the time? Were there anything unique that you found as you were digging through it?
Not really, unfortunately. I was hoping for that. So we don't have the code, but we just from me so many hours playing it, I kind of knew how it had to feel. But what we did do was we screen captured a ton of animations from the original game. And they cut some corners, probably because they had to due to the technology. That's not like a knock in any way or shape or form on the original developers when I say cut corners. It's just that the hardware they had at the time, they had to find creative ways to maximize it, because they were limited, I think, to probably like 16 colors or something on screen at once and all these other limitations. But you'll notice in some moves, because in wrestling games, right, you have to, in a 2D wrestling game specifically, you have to draw on the screen like an arm, then somebody's body, then the other player's body, then another arm on top of that. So there's all this layering going on. So sometimes they would just draw like Hulk Hogan and he'd have another arm sticking in front of him for a move. You know what I mean? So it wasn't all separate sprites. They would just draw that into the original sprite, which I thought was an interesting way to do it because it was probably a lot easier to code that way. And when they only had 12 characters and they weren't planning on adding any more, they could get away with stuff like that.
Now, I'm glad you touched on that. The question I want to ask now, before I forget it, because I have a lot of stuff going through my head. With the market being, like you said, there's not a whole lot of wrestling games, but unfortunately, and you don't have to trash them, I'm not asking you to do that, right. But 2K20 got a lot of negative backlash. I think you're aware of that.
Yeah, I am.
With that being said, do you think, and I see the fans going crazy, but what do you think about how you guys have been received so well without the game even being out there yet? So how did you just really get into the market and just slide right in there, man? Because they're waiting for it. I see the page. They ask every day, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? When is it coming out?
Yeah, so I can't take all the credit for it. One of the things I definitely wanted to do, I'll take credit for this. So I wanted to be completely transparent through our development process. I thought that would be the best way to get support from people. If they saw what we were doing and showed this isn't a money grab by any stretch of the means. I loved WrestleFest. My wife calls this my midlife crisis of making this game because it's just a passion thing. Instead of buying a sports car, I'm making this game. You know what I mean? So I just wanted that to really show that we care about this game. The guy who runs my social media, now I answer a lot of it too. We kind of tag team it, but he does the kind of continuous content, is a super huge wrestling fan, and his social media stuff has really helped us gain that steam. We post a ton of stuff on Twitter, a lot of stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and we're just really starting to ramp up YouTube now that we're going to have more content to show as we lead up to the game. So it'll do better on YouTube now that we have a little bit more to show. But his name's Mike T, and I'll tell you how I hired him. I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and we set up a meeting to have a call on a Friday afternoon. And he calls a couple hours before. He texts me. He's like, hey, can we reschedule this to Monday? And dealing with people on the internet, there's a lot of people who talk a good game, and then when it comes down to you meet with them, they don't show up or they don't return a call. So I'm like, he's not really interested. But his text was, I just bought a Superstars arcade cabinet, and it's sitting in my living room, and my wife is yelling at me to move it, and I really got to get it out of there. It's going to take me a while. I'm like, no problem, and you're hired. That was, he started Monday. So, but he's posting not just game-related stuff, but wrestling-related stuff, stuff that we're fans of. And I think that, that really shows that we're passionate about this project, and I think people can see that. We answer as many comments and questions as we possibly can. And it's a good feeling now that I can't even keep up with them, it seems, because we're just getting so many. And it's a great problem to have. So, but I spend, at least an hour every night just going through comments, questions, DMs, and stuff like that.
And the passion that you guys are doing shows, because one of the things, one of the issues I think with 2K20 was, they had zombies, they got all space shuttles and stuff. There's a group of people who just want wrestling. They want a ring. I've seen the NWA stuff you got. you know, the Blue World Order, all of that. And you talk about real wrestlers, you know, the LOD, all these guys. I want a wrestling game to have wrestling in it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But you can see the passion that comes through. Like even with the sign behind you, the 70th anniversary of NWA. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, we got some cool stuff we haven't shown yet too, as far as environments. We don't want to, you know, show our whole hand before we launch. So we may tease a little more in the trailer. Yeah, and that's one of the things, you know, from a marketing standpoint and getting people. The one thing we were concerned about was the way, kind of being a smaller developer, we can't really do the ideal way as far as our art pipeline. So we're kind of overwhelming people with like our jobbers or our enhancement talent images online and the Road Warriors, because they're the first ones we had the rights to, so we put them in the game. But it's going to be cool now that we're starting to get other characters in the game, so we can start showing a lot. And I think that's really going to help even spread the word even more when people start seeing the rest of the characters in action.
Yeah, now, I actually got, I don't know if you can see it, I got some of the action back here. Yeah. And yeah, you got the Road Warriors beating up some job boys right now. Man. You know what I'm saying? Why are you doing the green beans like that, man?
Well, we're trying to have like in our newsletter, we had like kind of a contest where I said, give me names of the jobbers, and we got some really good ones. And then my lawyer is like, you got to be careful if you put them in there and blah, 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 blah. You can't even do like a cool thing. So I got to clear some stuff with him and put out an official rules. And then I'm going to restart that up because they'll probably be like unlockable because we've gotten so much talk about the enhancement talent. And we got some people wrote like full backstories for us, like a couple paragraphs long of those two guys. So I have somebody in mind I want to win. We'll probably open it up for a few more suggestions though, but it's pretty cool the effort people put into that.
Yeah, man, like I said, I see it online. I see their energy. You got something big coming. But like you just talked about with NWA, you got the NWA, and we actually just had C.W. Anderson from NWA Power on the show last week. You're connected with NWA Power. You're connected with House of Hardcore. How did all that come about? Like, did they have any trepidation about being a part of this, putting their name on it? They had the 10 pounds of gold. When I saw that, I'm like, man, take my money, dog.
Yeah, not really. So I mentioned him before, but Mike Archer being in the WWE, and he's a really good guy, and he didn't burn any bridges with anybody. He's just a great person, and he knows wrestling, and he knows the gaming industry. He worked at Acclaim. He worked on some of the Legends of Wrestling games as well. So he has these relationships. So like he actually went to wrestling school with Tommy Dreamer. This is like years and years ago. Now, Mike wasn't cut out to be a wrestler. He couldn't take it. Okay. But he maintained that relationship. So Tommy was like a phone call away, and, he signed on really quickly. Because Mike has such a good reputation, and, the guys that know him know he's not going to just push something at them. It's not going to be good for them. And I think with the NWA, the same thing. Mike had a relationship with Dave Lagana already over there. And we were kind of like very good fit for each other. This is before they even announced that they were doing Power, right? So before they even announced that, we were already talking to them, and they were building their brand. And this is like they're going for that kind of retro feel a little bit, but they're trying to modernize it, right? And we're doing the same thing. So it was just a natural fit. And then the day that Power aired on TV, I immediately sent that clip to my environmental artist, and I'm like, make this. And like in a week, we had the NWA environment in the game. It was pretty cool. Or the NWA Power set in the game.
When I saw that picture, the set, I was like, that's it. That is it. We had Nick Aldis and them guys. I'm just saying, I told CW, I'll say it to you. Try to get him on the game too. Try to get CW in the game too.
Well, it's funny you say that. Like, that's the thing we get the most, right? You know who would be great in this game? And it's like, we got one Twitter message from somebody, a DM, that said, hey, it would be great if you put in, and then it literally listed 100 different wrestlers. And then at the end of it, it said, thanks, right? But the thing is, I agree. Like, I agree with C.W. Anderson. Like, there's not many people you could tell me that I wouldn't want to put in the game. Unfortunately, just right now, we just can't. We limited to like guys who we knew we could get. The Road Warriors were the first ones we went out to get, just because they were the boss of the original game. and they're instantly recognizable. You know what I mean? So, and it's just a combination of guys who aren't under deals with anybody, guys we could afford at this point, and guys who are easy to work with. And I can say everybody on our roster was super cool and super easy to work with.
So tell us a little bit more, about the dynamics of the game. Do you have an online portion? Is there downloadable people? What else do you have, coming for us as from a feature set?
So to start, we're going to have 16 wrestlers at launch. So initially we were saying 12 to 16, just because we weren't sure if we could sign enough. That wasn't a problem. It's affording enough is a little bit of a problem, because not just you have the licensing costs, but then it's all the artwork to actually do the guys. But with I'll give you a little bit of a scoop here with the WWE had some recent people let go. We saw an opportunity to jump on 2 guys. So that we're going to be announcing. They're actually going to be announcing it at some point. But so that's how we got up to 16. So 16 wrestlers. We actually started online. It's not going to be ready for launch, just because we need to dedicate everybody just to online play to do it right. We started working on it, and I was not happy with it at all. And all the things, I did a lot of research and reading about all the, do's and don'ts from indie developers. And online was one of the gotchas, because it can really ruin your reputation quick if you launch with online and it doesn't work well. So we did start it. So we kind of laid some groundwork in there that it would be harder to go back and add. But then we kind of left it there, and we just are concentrating completely on the gameplay aspect. As for DLC, to answer your other question, we definitely have a lot planned. We have 2 guys already signed for DLC, both guys who are currently wrestling now in 2 promotions that are on TV. So we have 2 guys that I'm not sure when we'll announce them yet. And then we want to add more. We have a ton of ideas for like DLC packs. And, our goal is not to, if we're a big success, I don't really want to charge much for DLC, if at all. So I totally want to reinvest into the game. And the more bang we can give you for your initial $25 or $29 if you pre-order versus launch price, as much as we can give people, we want to give them. I don't like I grew up, and you guys did too. You bought a Nintendo game, you got it, you got all the features, Now it's a double-edged sword, right? You can't fix bugs, you can't, add more content. So I would say, as far as DLC, we'll add new environments. They're not super costly to make, so I feel like we can add more of those, and we can absorb those costs as a company. We'll reinvest any revenue we have to make stuff like that. Wrestlers, depending on how much they cost us to license, we may need to recoup some of that money with DLC, charge DLC. But like I said, I don't like microtransactions, and I don't want to constantly be doing DLC that doesn't give you value. So that's a big concern of mine, especially as a parent. You know how much money I've spent this quarantine on 2K packs? Oh my God. Oh, Dad, but I can have a chance to get Ultra Diamond Sapphire LeBron if I buy another 3 packs. And then my team will be perfect until the Ultra Sapphire Curry's out, and then I got to get him.
Man,
I'm very sensitive to that.
My son's got Fortnite, so I know.
I have 3 kids. One of them plays Fortnite a lot too. So
we appreciate you for that, man. Because some of that DLC, I was just playing Injustice 2 on mobile, and they were like a bundle on a mobile game for $99. I'm like, that's crazy, dog.
I think I should go to mobile then. That's it,
man. But with that being said, to people that's watching this and listening, name some of the wrestlers in case they don't know some of the names you do have. We've been talking about
absolutely. So Road Warriors, we mentioned Animal and Hawk, Tommy Dreamer in the House of Hardcore, Nick Aldis, the real world's champion. The Blue World Order, Blue Meanie, Stevie, Big Stevie Cool and Hollywood Nova, Zack Sabre Jr., Jeff Cobb, Johnny Retro in our game.
Right.
And we just announced Austin Idol, the Universal Heartthrob, back from Memphis and NWA. And we just announced last week the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff. I think I named everybody we announced. I might be missing. I'm sorry, Colt Cabana.
Yes.
Another name we announced already. I don't want to slip up because I don't want to give away the two we haven't announced yet. I think that.
Okay. We got you. We understand. Speaking of Big Stevie Cool, Hollywood, no, man, I saw Big Stevie Cool got a cabinet already.
Yeah.
He done made a he has an arcade cabinet already because he got a copy. We don't have a copy yet, but he got a copy.
He actually doesn't have the game. He ran it a little bit. We're trying to get him. He wants to test it and help test and try to do some promotion for us. So we actually worked with a company that sponsored that cabinet build, and he's going to do a review on the cabinet build. We had some issues with putting that cabinet together, so it looks really cool. The artwork came out really good, so we're still working on getting that working on that cabinet. So we'll get that done. But I'll tell you, I got to know Stevie a little bit the past couple of months. Like, I'm a big conspiracy horseman. His other podcast that he does with all the like aliens and conspiracy theory stuff. I think it's really entertaining. So I've gotten to know him a little bit the past couple of months. Really great guy. And I knew, but I remembered, but I met him like 20 years ago. He actually was a manager in a video game store in his like early 20s right in the mall near my house that I grew up around. So it's kind of funny.
Wow. Now, I ask you this. We've interviewed multiple wrestlers on these shows, and wrestlers are a different breed of person. They are. Yeah, you know what I mean. Especially talking about retro style wrestlers that are, they back in the day they were totally kayfabe.
Yeah.
How has your interaction been with the guys? Were some of the guys still or were most of them just totally cool guys to work with?
No, they've all been great. I mean, I'd say that the one I was probably most kind of taken back, kind of awestruck was Animal, just because, it's the Legion of Doom. You know what I mean? It's like because he was, he's one of the guys that was around when I was like 10. Some of and we want to add more of those guys too, definitely. Some of the older, not older, but the like early mid 80s guys time frame. We definitely we're talking to a couple. We're hoping to finalize some of that stuff for DLC, But Nikita, I was worried about meeting him, and I met him at a show, one of Dreamer's shows actually in Philly. He couldn't have been a nicer person than I ever met in the world. And I just I remember, I was telling my kids, I was like terrified of him growing up because I still remember him clothesline David Crockett in an interview with the chain, and like the way his eyes would bug out of his head. You know what I mean? Like when he give promos and stuff, I was scared of him. But he couldn't have been nicer. And he's just great, like interacting with fans now on social media once we announced them. But really, all the Blue World Order, all awesome. I've gotten to know Meanie a little bit. He was at PAX East with me. And he was also at WrestleCon with me last year. And just a great guy. Really, I've lucked out because, you worry that you meet some of these guys that you watch on TV and you kind of put them on a pedestal and stuff. And you're worried, because you hear stories of people telling, oh, this guy's an asshole or this guy's an asshole, And then when you meet them, I've been so lucky because they've all been really great. So, and I'm hoping it stays that way.
Nice.
Oh, awesome. So in terms of the game, you mentioned a little bit about, the play. Tell us all the features.
Yeah, more gameplay.
Yeah, more gameplay. What's going on? Like, single tag tournaments. Yep. What's going on in there?
All right, so I would say, just describing the gameplay in general, think of like if WrestleFest and Fire Pro had a baby, all right, it would be RetroMania. All right, so we wanted to, obviously there were some design things in WrestleFest that were specific to get you to put quarters in the arcade machine, right? So like the annoying thing where you go into a Retro Rumble, or no, that's our version. You go into WrestleFest Royal Rumble, and you immediately get thrown out because you get put into a body slam, and you lose your quarter in literally 3 seconds. It was the most frustrating thing ever, right? So we took most of that stuff out. It can still happen, but it's not that often. But I kind of wanted to add it in there just because it was there before. But we have more moves than WrestleFest had, but we still have that mechanic where, Fire Pro does it, but before Fire Pro, Pro Wrestling did it, Matt Mania did it, where you get close to somebody, it's an auto grapple. We don't have like an N64 grab button or grapple button. So it's auto grapple. And then there is some timing based to it, but it's not as strict as Fire Pro's timing based. And if you tie, it goes to just a button masher. So I like the button mashing, and I feel like through people playing it, they enjoy it too. It's like it's a little more frantic and it's more arcadey feel. So we have a randomness to it as well. So we're not looking for someone to really hone up their skills and be able to beat everybody. We want there something to be some kind of forced back and forth, because just in watching people play it, and we've seen like probably 200-300 people play a demo so far, and I think they've enjoyed the way we've done it, and that's the feedback we've gotten, where you can pick it up and start playing and it's fun, and that's the biggest thing, that our gameplay is fun. So a couple other things though, you press up in any direction plus either a weak, medium, or strong button, you do a grapple move. So, and it can progress or it doesn't have to. So we have a lot of user options. So for example, we have a health bar and a momentum bar. And you can, if you don't want them on the screen, you can play blind if you want, easy to take off. But the momentum meter is to make it, like, I really did like how WrestleFest would progress the move. So my team was Jake the Snake and $1 Million Man. I like being those two. So, Jake would start with a body slam or a snapmare, and then eventually he'd do the side suplex, right? And then eventually he would do a DDT. And when he hit the DDT, more time, like I'd say 8 out of 10 times the match was over once you were able to do that move. And I really liked that aspect, because every time to this day, when I hit the DDT, I get that little feeling of, oh, it's over, DDT, I hit the DDT, it's done. And I really wanted that same gameplay in our game, where if you hit your finisher, it's over, for most part. Now, we do have we call it a second wind, where every maybe 5 or 6 matches you can kick out of a finisher or something like that. So if you button mash, there's a chance you're going to kick out. So you want to have that, again, that tension where, oh, maybe I'll get out this time, and your opponent being, man, that's BS. He shouldn't kick out of the DDT, Those are the kind of things that we saw going on through play testing that we really want to focus on and keep on. So as far as match modes, right, we have the original had a tag team and Royal Rumble. We have tag team. We have a Retro Rumble, because we can't do the copyright laws. But ours is, you can start with 2 in the ring opposed to 6 if you want, but you can pick how many people start in the ring, and you can pick how many people are actually in the match. So if you only want like 8, you can have an 8-man Royal Rumble and only go through 8 guys, but you can do the whole roster as well. So if you want everybody in the roster to do it, you can do that. And then you can set the interval of how often they come out as well. And then the other thing you can do is you're not necessarily always going to start the game. Now, there's a setting where you can force yourself to be in, but you may randomly, even if you're playing a single-player game, you may randomly come out 5th or come out 6th. So we'll have a way to fast forward to when you come out if you don't want to watch the AI stuff. But, like, I kind of enjoy watching and seeing what happens in the AI. And one of the big questions we got was, are you going to do AI to AI gameplay? Just AI gameplay. And I think that's big in Fire Pro community. I never personally got into it much, but we got the question enough where we put it in, and it wasn't a big ad to do.
I'm that guy. I'm that guy. Okay. 2K19, or I'm gonna download some guys, and they're gonna go at it, and I'm gonna be in the back.
Yeah. So, and we kept getting the question, so I looked into it more, and I'm like, it isn't. I kind of liked it, so I started watching some stuff, and so yeah, we're definitely gonna do that, and then we have singles mode on top of that. That's our 10 pounds of gold mode. So that's your typical like ladder style Mortal Kombat fight through the roster. Now, the one unique thing about ours is the first time you go through it, you're going to beat Nick Aldis. All right. Now, if you play the second time as Nick Aldis, or I'm sorry, as whoever you were playing as. So let's say I go through Retro Rumble with Big Stevie Cool and I win, or I'm sorry, go through 10 pounds of gold with Big Stevie Cool. I have to play through, fight the belt, win the belt, and then defend the belt the same number of times, right? So then I'm champion, and your name goes up on a scoreboard, all right? Now, next time I start the game, if I play 10 pounds of gold mode, if I'm Stevie, I jump right to defending the title. If I'm not Stevie, I got to beat Stevie to get the title. It's going to remember that Stevie's the champion. So that was kind of an important thing to me. Just little things like that I kind of liked playing, and and you can always reset it if you want. You want Nick to be the champion, we'll let you reset it if you want. But little things like that, and Stevie's going to wear the belt to the ring, in his other matches in the game. So, cage matches. We got both the big blue and the steel cage from the NWA. So that's pretty cool. And our cage is more interactive than the original WrestleFest, where you could just kind of throw them in there, and you couldn't do Irish whips anymore in that game. So there's more interaction with our cage. We showed a couple things online of somebody doing an elbow drop off the top of the cage, which I still pop for every time I see it. So, and we want to do more of that stuff. And then we have 6-man tag, we have 8-man tag, and all of our tag matches can be played elimination style or tornado style.
Ooh. That's nice. That's nice.
Okay. Well, another question I know you guys get quite often, so you got to answer this one. Whoa. What are you drinking on the show, man? I thought
Just water.
Okay, I thought only I could drink wine on the show. A question that you guys get a lot: female competitors.
Yep.
If you can get an answer, I know the answer, but let the listeners know the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sexist, I swear, okay? It's really came down to our budget. So the way our art works, we built the characters. We have 4 different body styles. So, you know, the enhancement talent or the jobbers you see on screen, that's really our base wrestler. So what we did is we took the strong animation, which would be like the Road Warriors, our strong body style. And we did every animation in the strong body style first. And that way, we did it that way so we could give them all to our programmer and he could start programming the moves as we're working on the rest of the art pipeline. So once we had all the strong ones, then we gave it to 3 other artists. One of them converted it to the big body type, which is like Dreamer or Jeff Cobb or Colt Cabana. And then somebody did the extra big, which is Meanie. And then somebody did like a technical style, which is your Johnny Retro or your Zack Sabre Jr., right? So that's pretty expensive to do all that. And to do females, I wanted to do them right. I didn't want to half-ass just one female type in there to cover it. So I want to do 4 different female body types and do it right and do it the same way we did the guys. I just, unfortunately, you know, I'm funding this myself. I didn't have enough money to do it all at once. So our goal is to really nail the gameplay, make sure the game is fun, get a nice user base going who, you know, buys the game, and then reinvest into our game and add a whole female full download.
No. Sweet. Now you mentioned, you know, the actually coding and animating the moves, and then that's really neat because you know, I'm thinking about, you know, so many wrestling games where, you know, the Japanese games, all this stuff, all these crazy moves. You know, any idea of how many moves in the game, like uniquely?
Yeah, there are at least, I would say roughly right around 300 to 400. I don't know. I forget the exact. I know our animation number is up to 700 right now, the number of animations, but that's also the cell animations is included in that number. So if I have like Tour of the Islands for Jeff Cobb, I also have, that's one animation, but, you know, selling the Tour of the Islands is another animation. So it's not 700, but it's like over 300 unique wrestling moves are in the game. So, and where WrestleFest, I think, had 50 at tops.
Right.
You know?
Right. See,
so, I mean, we don't have 7 variations of a power bomb like Fire Pro does. But, you know, I think we have 2 different
Burning Hammer or whatever.
Yeah.
See, you didn't know when you were coming on this show. See, I'm just a wrestling guy. He's a wrestling guy and IT guy also, so he knows exactly what you're talking about, man.
Oh yeah. I come from IBM in my past, so it's fun stuff. Now, in terms of like, any thoughts on creation? Is that something you're going to save for next version? Or is there any type of creation suite? You know? Yeah.
So again, and then the answer, it's not going to be at launch. It's definitely something we're interested in. Whether it's like a RetroMania 2 or just like a creation suite that goes into this game for DLC, it's kind of undetermined. It'll really depend on how sales go of the game. So that's really, again, why we're super focused on I want to make 100 sequels. You know, I want to make more. I want to keep adding to this one. And we're definitely not going to do a game a year. And we're debating on changing this to 2K21 or RetroMania 2K21, but I didn't think that would go over that well. But no, we're not going to do that. Those guys, you know, I'm joking at their expense, but have so much pressure to produce a game every year. And it's really not the developers. It's this, you know, it's the business and the stockholders pushing them to that. I know there's no developer that said, yeah, it's done, push it out. So I don't want to go on them too hard, but we definitely want to do something like that. But again, it goes to just the number of art assets that we got to pump out in order to do it right? So if you go in and you want to create the Rock, I got to make sure we got the People's Elbow in, Rock Bottom, his version of the Spine Buster, among other things. His taunts, and then, a couple other things in there. Now, you multiply that by even if you pick the top 10 wrestlers, that's another, at least 30 animations between the top 10 to get all their specials in there. So, and immediately, we're already a 2D game. We're already going to be compared to Fire Pro. So how do we stand out? I don't want to really bring on that comparison as much as I can avoid it. I really want to stand on our OT feet. Our gameplay is different than Fire Pro. They're a simulation. We're more of an arcade game. Our perspective's different. And I just think to bite off all that, Fire Pro is basically the same game that I played on the Super NES. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. It's definitely progressed, but it's that same base of game that they've built on and perfected over almost 30 years now. You know what I mean? So for us, it would be naive for us to go in and say, we're going to do everything Fire Pro did right out of the gate. It just doesn't make sense. So we're just super focused on, let's concentrate on our gameplay, get a cool roster, and add a bunch of the standard game modes, and then just start building out from there.
Y'all heard that. You got a scoop. He said Fire Pro was just like Madden. They just keep changing the number. That's it. They just changed the number. I'm joking. He didn't say that. Well, real quick, because we don't want to hold you up too much longer, but
good.
Time of release. Let the people know what gaming platforms they can play it on.
Yeah, so we're on Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and PC via Steam. We'll probably add some other PC distribution platforms as well. You can pre-order Switch and PC now on our website, and then it'll be on it'll be on Steam, the eShop, the Sony store, and Xbox One store. It'll be out 30 days before we launch, which brings us to our launch date. We're still targeting July, but I'll tell you right now, we're not going to ship it unless it's done. So I feel pretty confident about July today. Our gameplay is pretty stable right now. So it's just getting all the art assets into the game. Most of our move animations are done as well. So, but I'd rather wait a couple weeks and push to August if I had to, and have a better experience for everybody day one, and not worrying about, well, I know we got to patch this, and this as soon as it hits, So I think people will be more easily forgive. Now it's the internet, so we'll get blasted either way. I understand that, right? But I think people would be more understanding if when we do release the game, it's finished versus releasing it 2-3 weeks earlier and it's not. Now, that's not to say we're still pushing for July, so we really want to hit July.
Well, see, I wasn't even going to ask you about the launch date thing because I see the comments and I see how upset they get when you don't respond to that part. They get all bad. I'm like, so
no, I'm not dodging it. I'm just saying, I think Blizzard was a big one saying it's done when it's done, and they never. Now Blizzard's got some other issues that they got going on, but in the last year or so, but I do like the fact that they typically release stuff and it's pretty polished, and I read something on Miyamoto, and Super Mario World is like as perfect can get from a platforming standpoint. You know what I mean? And supposedly they said once he got every department said they were done. He said, all right, great. Now let's work on it for 6 more months. Wow. Right. And that's his, they made it as, now I'm not Miyamoto. And I don't have Nintendo behind me, and that's just not an option. But, you want to get as close to that kind of mindset as you can where, I don't want to, it would drive, I know I'm a little OCD. It'll drive me nuts knowing stuff. Even when we go to, when we were at PAX East, I knew there were bugs in it. It was a demo build. It was a beta, and I cringed every time I saw one, even if somebody didn't notice it, you know what I mean? And there were several that people did notice, but we want to get as much of that stuff cleaned up as we possibly can. So it's not going to be perfect when we launch, but unlike the, NES and the Super Nintendo, we now have the advantage where we can update stuff. So we will. But we don't want to be Duke Nukem Forever or No Man's Sky when that first. I mean, No Man's Sky it took them 3 years to get people back, you know what I mean? And to turn their reputation around. And, you know, I'd rather just wait a little longer. And I'm not talking about, you know, Duke Nukem Forever. I'm talking a couple weeks max that we could push to finish up Polish.
That's amazing, especially when you talk about a small team. Because, you know, you also got a code, like, and we've seen issues with the Switch, right, with 2K, and it was horrible. And so, I mean, I don't know, how do you manage that, you know, multiple platforms with a team that's so small?
Well, so the development platform we're using is actually called Game Maker Studio. And it's a pretty older game engine but it's specifically designed for 2D games. And back when I was researching, you know, which engine to use, you know, I was looking at Unity, Unreal, and then I'm like, I read stuff on Game Maker, and I said, well, let me look at it. So I decided, you know what, let me prototype it, because I actually tried, and I just found, not knowing either, that, you know, I most of my background's in like database code and like Microsoft SQL and MySQL and stuff like that. So I don't do much object-oriented programming. But I said, well, let me look. I'll try them both, and I'll just, from a completely zero base, see what I find easier to do. And I was able to get a lot done in Game Maker really quickly versus, you know, Unity. So I figured, well, at a minimum, why don't I prototype it in Game Maker and see where we go? And I just really love my lead programmer, and he's done a great job. He's a hard worker. He's actually lives in Vietnam, so it kind of works out well, because when he's working while I'm asleep, and then I'm working while he's asleep, testing what he did, you know? So, but to answer your question directly, Game Maker supports exports to Xbox, PS4, Switch, and PC. It actually supports Android and iOS as well. So you might have a port down the way, you never know. And I can charge $99 for it. Right?
Please don't. Man.
I'm just kidding. But since it exported out to all those, and we were able to build our Switch build in like an hour or two. It was really easy. So obviously we have to optimize it and do some stuff to it, but we're not super concerned with the porting. We have time put away that we've actually already started the porting process, even with where our code base is at right now.
Awesome. Nice. Well, like I said, we don't want to keep you too much longer. Daryl, do you have anything else for him?
I think I think we got to put in some special requests. Can we put in a request?
I'm all ears.
I want the Dynamite Kid. I'm going to request the Dynamite Kid, the greatest wrestler of all time. Do what you can. If you can't do it this year, get a license for him. Get the Dynamite Kid.
All right. I mean, I was a big British Bulldogs fan.
That's his guy, man.
You know, I'll say Michael, that. I definitely was.
Well, Michael, thank you for being on the show. Could you please let everybody know once again, I know you got a vlog you guys just started on YouTube. Let them know how they can get a hold of you guys, what's coming up. If you want to do that right quick before we get out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. So RetroManiaWrestling.com, all of our information. We have a fact on there, wrestler bios, pre-order for Switch and PC. And then we're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at RetroSoft Studio. And we just really launched our YouTube channel. We had a few things on there, but we're going to be doing 2 uploads a week. One's the developers vlog that'll be out every Friday, and then just a different topic each Wednesday about the game. So definitely go there, subscribe, and you'll stay in the loop on all things RetroMania.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for being on the show. We had tons of information. Hope you had a good time with us.
It was great. You guys are awesome.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you again, and we will chat it up with you later, bro. Take care.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Daryl, another great show, man.
Another great show. But you didn't put in a request, though. I didn't hear a request from you.
I knew you the guy. I wanted you to do it, man. You're our guy, man.
Come on. You got to have one person you want in there.
You're right. Well, I just want to play the game, man. I've been a fan since they started talking about it. I'm like one of the people that be in the comments, like, when is it coming out? When is it coming out, man? So I can't wait. So I don't have a request. I just want to see the game, man. But I can't wait for it. He was a great guest that we had today, man. If you want to let people know what we got coming up in the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, we got a couple of things planned. I know we got Oh man, Scott Hudson from
Throw it to you in the
WWF.
control room. I'm gonna take it back. See what we do. We got Impact Wrestling superstar Johnny Bravo, referee / manager. He's gonna be on the show coming up. We also we just talked to Mr. Scott Hudson, former WCW commentator. We're gonna talk about some of that Monday Night Wars and even talk about when he dabbled in the WWE for a little bit. So we got tons of stuff coming up. So guys, make sure you follow us on Instagram at The Whip Show Podcast, YouTube, The Whip Show Podcast, Facebook, all the same Whip Show Podcast. If you have an email, it's somebody you want on the show, hit us up at The Whip Show Podcast at gmail.com. We'll try to get them on, man. We're going to bring you guys nothing but some great entertainment. You never know what you get here on the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders Podcast. But we will see you next time. I am Deshaun Whip Dog Whipple.
And Devastating Daryl Pace. See you guys out there.
We will see you on the next show. Take care, guys.
All right, take care.